Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm Chives. Chives CSWS Yankees in the World Series. Listen, the New York Rangers are on a roll. We're gonna talk plenty hockey in this episode, but yeah, it's a wild time to be in New York. I mean, I think if this episode doesn't fully talk about Juan Soto's at bat alone, um, I think there's a lot of life lessons in it. I think there's a lot of lessons that the other New York team should observe, and I think you're getting that feeling again. Like Cat tweeted about it, Carl Anthony Towns.
Oof.
Um, who wasn't watching? And you're starting to see a lot of those athletes represent at different games and as fans. I love it. I think New York is really close to being on the way back, and if the Yankees set that trend, it'd be amazing. And obviously, not to discount the fact too, Mets. This is Game 6 tonight. We're recording before the game, so we won't know the result, but just the fact like the Rangers, Loft's going off, Panarin's going off. It's a great time to be in New York. We're not going to talk about football, but Steve-O, you and I have talked for years about how we're Yankee fans, almost as equally as Ranger fans. I wrote for the Rangers last year. Like it's truly special to see a team go to a championship, and especially this group that we've waited since 2017. I mean, for us, that was like season 2 of Puck Talk was the start of their contention window. We were both freshmen, sophomores in high school. Like, it's truly great to see.
Yeah, and chances are, if you're listening and you're from the New York area, chances are you are a Yankees fan, or you're a Mets fan, or you know somebody that's a Yankees fan. And Chaz, all I gotta say is that I think we were 8 or 9 years old the last time the Yanks were in the World Series. So I remember a little bit, but obviously we weren't into it like back then at that young of an age than we are now. And just seeing how the last few years have played out, I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this is what you live for in being a fan, whether it's Rangers Stanley Cup, Yanks World Series. This is awesome right now. And I mean, Juan Soto, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, hockey fan or not, I mean, you got to acknowledge, I mean, that at bat was just, that's why you go out and get him. It's for moments like that. I mean, same thing with Igor, with Juan Soto. You got to open the
Yeah.
checkbook there. Jazz Chisholm said 700 million. I think you got to lay it out for him. I mean that at bat was just, talk about fighting until getting the pitch you want to get that fastball. I mean, that is just, that was probably one of the best at bats I think I've ever seen in my entire life, Chives.
Yeah, he was so locked in. And I think that was, there were so many things about it. And, I think what's good, especially on the show today, is to draw the parallels as to why you gotta believe. Like I think title right there, title of the epi. That you gotta believe. Like I was the biggest critic of Stanton. My grandfather, he passed away this year. Lifelong Ranger fan, lifelong Yankee fan. He was like the only Yankee fan among his friends in Brooklyn because he grew up in the 40s and 50s. Um, he was the biggest Stanton critic ever too. But to see that turn around and to see, those players that when you see them at their worst, like 2017 to 22, this Yankees roster and core kept going the distance. Sorry, fall. You know them allergies. But with that, 2023 rolls around and they have by far their worst season. They missed the playoffs. Abysmal. You saw all their worst on display. And this year that slowly turned around by midsummer. And now we're seeing the best and what they're truly capable of. Stanton is making history. He's etching his name into Cooperstown, and Soto is certainly making history.
I can't think of a better guy, Chives, that deserves this than Giancarlo Stan. You think about the last 6 and 7 years on this Yankees team, and somebody who has gone through the worst of the worst stretches. I mean, how many
Yeah.
times this guy got booed at Yankee Stadium, or is striking out like a video game, like at pitches that were non-competitive. I mean, and just to come up, and I gotta say, the last few years, going back to that wild card game since 2021, Stan's been
Mhm.
clutch in the playoffs. And listen, you could draw the comparisons over the Rangers. And you want to make, you know, uh, over the next few years, the cap is going to be something that's talked about heavily in Rangers land. People say Giancarlo's not worth it. You got to trade him. You got to trade him. But this is why you pay him as much as money as you are, because when the calendar flips to October, Giancarlo becomes Mr. October. And that's why you pay a guy like that. So you look at the parallels to the Rangers, whether you want to look at Kreider last year when he took over in round 2, you want to look at Panarin, you want to look at Mika. Those are the kind of parallels that you want to draw, and hopefully we get this year. I mean, oh my goodness, Yanks Rangers. I mean, I don't know if I could think of a better year in my lifetime up to this point if something like that panned out. But I do want to say, Chavs, our parents and our grandparents have experienced Rangers. They've experienced all those Yankee years. I think it's time that we start getting some of these memories ourselves. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the longest stretch in New York history without a championship. And the teams now are contending. And I think that's why there's the expectation. Like the Knicks have put themselves in the conversation of contender. The Rangers have for years, 5 Eastern Conference final appearances since you and I were in the fifth grade, 2012. Um, Obviously, the Yankees, year in and year out since 2017. That roster had like the Todd Father, Big Toe, CC. Like
BB.
there was a dog.
Yeah.
I saw it. That was actually really funny, dude. It was like, this one's for like, and it was all those guys like Greg Bird. Like, we've seen it all. And you know what? It actually reminds me in a lot of ways of this Rangers group where it's like, you think about all those guys that like have built up and helped build this team to contender that kind of were, I wouldn't say not acknowledged like they were by the fan base, but like the day the Rangers make that Stanley Cup, and hopefully it's this year, or soon, it's the conversational like Frankie V, Andrew Kopp, Tyler Mott, Colin Blackwell, Michael Grabner. Like, there's a lot of names that I think help push this team back into the contention window that deserve it. That was just a fun thing to bring up. I love what you're saying though, Steve. Like you said, when that calendar flips to June, Panarin, you just gotta believe that he's gonna turn up. And I know that the track record has a negative connotation, right? But like, I, I, I believe, and I'm a true believer in anything. I've said it on the pod before. Like Darnell Nurse made a Stanley Cup final last year, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God! Listen, I'm just because I know the Dodgers and Mets are going on at the time of recording this. I'm just going through like the scenarios in my head because New York's going to be locked in the World Series. I know we're of course we're Ranger guys. We're going to be paying attention to that too. But it's going to be all World Series here. Moving on. This is it's a once in a lifetime thing. And if the Yankees play the Mets, and there's an outcome that isn't favorable to the Yankees, I don't even know if there's going to be another Puck Talk episode ever again after that. So, but listen, it's all baseball right now, but I guess we got to give everything we got to the Rangers. So let's show them some love, Chives. Let's talk some puck. I'm right off the bat. We're talking championships, Yanks in the World Series. What's up with the Ranger banner 2023-2024 regular season champs? Did you see that?
Steve-O, I'm ready to go to war, and I'm actually against. I feel like I'm at the wrong end of a lot of these arguments this year. Like specifically this season. Like we've been in this season for like 3 weeks. I love the bump us for that the longest let's talk puck take ever, 8 minutes by the way. No, dude, just I don't know why it's such a big deal. I understand. Listen, original six. Oh, you beat 6 teams. There were 6 teams in the league. At the time, a casino owner, Tex Ranger, and a promoter of the circus, like MSG split between the circus and the Rangers. Like athletics was not what it is today. Okay, so there's that conversation. I hate this taking the context and putting it into 2024, but I want to hear your points because I respect you and I disagree with some of that more like that the crowd that I feel like just always has something to say. Um I see it as all right, maybe it shouldn't be titled that, but the banner I was at MSG last week for the Red Wing game. Like every other banner's there. You go into any other arena, they got it there. I was at the Prudential Center for a preseason game. They had it up there too. I know some people call it stupid. I think if you win your division, like that's not a championship. I understand the term, but other than that, I won't hear. the arguments. Like to me, it's like in college football. If Penn State beats Michigan and beats Ohio State, to me, that's a winning year. But I digress, Steve. I want to hear your take because you were emphatic with that.
So you're okay with it?
I'm perfectly okay with it. And frankly, if this is what we're arguing about, I think there's bigger fish to fry.
I think some of the takes online that we've seen, from common Ranger haters, I think they're just blown out of proportion. Let's shit on the Rangers, all that BS. I don't
Oh,
hate it, and I
Picasso doesn't do anything professionally.
oh yeah,
I've
of
never
course.
seen him act with creed, speak with credibility. Like he's always pumping hate. So it's okay.
I agree to a sentiment to what you said in the beginning. Where I listen to
Mhm.
me, regular season champs just doesn't sound right. I think it should just be President Trophy winners. I think something along those lines. I think
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. But when I first saw that, I wasn't loving it. I don't hate it. I just think it's worded wrong. Like I think it just sends a wrong message. And I think obviously we're a team that I think, we've said it, and we're probably going to say this on every episode, the expectation, just talk Yanks, the expectations, World Series for them. Rangers, the expectations high, and this is the year. This is the year where if we don't get to where we are, you might see a major move in a different direction to where this team's at. We brought basically the same core back, added some more different pieces in, and I just think regular season champs. I don't know. To me, it's nothing to celebrate. Yes, you were the best, but ultimately you came up short. So to me, President's Trophy winners, if we could change the name, I'm okay with it. But regular season champs, again, how many times do you see that? I just don't think. I don't know. I don't like the sound of that. Just nothing to celebrate. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's not nothing, anything to freak out over. And I think, listen, hey, people want to hate on it. Let's go out there and get our new banner this year.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna say, I wonder how many times we're gonna say the word championship in this friggin' episode. But um the Rangers, they like if they win this season, I think all of these conversations just like the room it out the door. I just think there's a lot of the pressure from the outside. And I think when you have a situation where like the modern sports fan sees that, they're gonna pick it apart no matter what. So listen, I think if they won the Stanley Cup last year, no one's batting an eye about that. And if they are, there's a lot more for those who watch, observe, and cover the Rangers to stand on their business. But overall, didn't look great considering the result of the conference final. But I think you and I we're going to keep drawing comparisons to the Yanks. We're going to keep drawing comparisons, even in some ways, to the Mets. Like to me, Lindor kind of has that swag level too. Um, Pete Alonso's in a very similar situation where it's like, is this his last different type of player? But is this his last year as a Met? He's a home run guy, one of their most historic ever. He doesn't do everything great. He plays pretty well defensively, but other than that, like he doesn't stand out as a base runner. Doesn't stand, he's not an all around guy like a Juan Soto who's like the real deal. And he's also in that conversation of contract extension. So like the Rangers now, with how Lafreniere played against Toronto, with how Igor played against Toronto the other night, we had Zach Phillips on to preview that game, and I think the Rangers took them to town. We all thought that on the previous live stream, we thought it was going to be a close game. It wasn't. Um, there's a lot of reason to believe this team can win. And I think they're really, really reaching, which I'm shocked to say, another level. And I think it's in a lot of ways the ways we viewed the Mets and the Yankees at different points of their seasons, respectively. Didn't think the Mets were going to advance after the wild card. I truly, on paper, didn't believe if you showed me all the rosters of the recent Yankees teams, I wouldn't pick this one to go to the World Series.
Yeah,
Um, so right, Steve? Like I just think this this is a changeover again, and I think the really key players for the Rangers are really early on carrying.
it's funny how sports works. If you pick all the Rangers teams to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. And last year's team went instead of 2022 when you had Tarasenko and Kane. So it's funny how
Oh
those
yeah,
things. It's
23.
it's funny how those things work. And I think
Mhm.
we were comparing the Yanks to the Rangers, or the Rangers to the Yanks a lot. I think you could really make a good case that you can compare the Rangers to the Mets more. I think there's more of a, a they equal them more in a sense where the Mets weren't a great team. They had a fight to get in, but it's all about getting hot at the right time. And you take a look at the Rangers. We know the Rangers are going to be there. The question is, are they going to get hot at the right time? Let's take a look at it right now. Yeah, yesterday's game was great, but I mean, Panarin's starts of the season, I mean, has been historic. I mean, you look at the numbers that Panarin has put up this point of the season. I mean, if you continue this track up, I mean, he's on pace for another record-breaking season. It's insane. Yes, I love Panarin. I mean, he's got 6 goals and what? 6 goals, 12 points in what, 5 games now? I mean, it's outstanding. I mean, but the problem is we get to that same point every single year. Mets got hot at the right time. Well, the Rangers get hot at the right time, and I need Panarin when it matters most. Panarin's got to step up and beat Giancarlo, and in the last few years, it hasn't proved that way. But again, we're a long way from that point. I'll let you chip in here.
No, I actually think that was great what you said all around. I think in a lot of ways you can think of Panarin as Stanton. I think you can think of Loff as like Vientos on
Yeah.
the Mets, where it's like, or like a Volpe. Like I think he's had more firepower than Volpe. But Volpe, if he doesn't get that hit, the fly into center, um, in what was that, game four?
Yeah.
I don't know if they win that game. So yeah, I think overall just those comparisons we could really zip around. In a lot of ways, it feels like Wells was like Kako. Like he was playing really well, and now in the postseason, it's like, oh, we're still waiting for him to hit that stride in the postseason a little bit. Um,
I can see Kako as Verdugo.
Doogie, yeah.
Yeah, you see Verdugo batting ninth. You kind of see like, is he gonna play? Is he not gonna play to start the playoffs? You play him, and you kind of get, you're getting the defense is kind of similar to Kako, what you're getting with him defensively. But anything
Okay.
offensively for Verdugo is like a plus more. Like it's kind of the same with Kako. If Kako chips in offensively, it's kind of a plus more on top of Trocheck and Loff and Panarin and Mika. So I
But
kind of
also, you know what? I love that, Steve-O. That was great, man. No, I think what's tough is to think of like the Judge Stand back-to-back homers. Um, but ultimately Soto comes up with that moment. And I know again, we're punting this way down the line. We've done this a lot lately here, but it's about when's that moment too. You know, Panarin's moment round one against the Penguins was euphoric, but Soto did that in the equivalent to the conference final. And I think again, there's a lot of reason to believe by how Panarin started that like, could this be the year he does it in the playoffs? But listen, I think overall, the comparisons, man, they're there. And I think the reason I'm bringing them up is because I've been saying it to every possible person that'll listen, the attendant at the gym, the person making my Chipotle. Like, if a roster construction, character issue, you could compare that to Jazz Chisholm. You could compare not character, but on ice controversy to like a Matt Rempe. Not the same player by any means, but point being, there's always going to be something. Every team deals with it. And like you said, the Nationals in the COVID shortened season, they won. They weren't great, but they got hot at the right time. Doesn't matter if they played 10 games, doesn't matter if they played 60 games in a season, don't matter if they played 3,000 games in a season. If you get hot the 10 games leading into the playoffs, you're good as gold. And we've seen that time and time again from the Rangers. Now, something else we've seen, which I want to gauge your opinion on, is like this is another amazing start. They started this way last season. D- do you anticipate like what the fall off could be? That's the one thing. Like, I feel like, are we at a peak? Are we still rising? Like, I don't think there's any reason to question. Like, Nashville is clearly starting off 0-5. None of those offseason moves have really panned out yet. real early, real small sample size. But like, are we, is next week going to be a rough week? Is that going to turn into a few rough weeks? I want to know your thoughts on that.
That's the money question right there. And I would have given you a different answer right now if it wasn't for last year. I think last year, I think sitting up maybe in 2 weeks from now, a year ago, we were sitting there going, there's going to be a fall off. And then that road trip came. We took those 6 games on the road. We went to Winnipeg. We went to Vancouver, and we really swept that. And it just didn't stop from there. Every game, I mean, we really took advantage of that. And that proved to me that this could work. This could work. This team has what it takes to keep this momentum going. And that proved a lot. And I think, building off of what we saw Saturday night against the Leafs, we can win in more than one way. And I think, whether it's offensively, whether it's defensively, and whether it's with goaltending, which I want to get to that in a second, but we've scored 24 times in the first 5 games. Let that sink in. I mean, you thought last year was historic. I mean, you don't score 24 goals in the first 5 games and then you just drop off from there. And I think, to me, I mean, we're clicking on all cylinders right now. I mean, Zibanejad's gotten going. Loft looks good. Panarin's tearing it up. How about Kreider? I mean, Kreider's been cooking. Riley Smith, everybody on that first line. Defensively, Igor's on. To me, too many pieces are clicking to start the year to be for us to just fall off. I mean, you brought up great comparisons with Nashville. Yeah, and Stamkos isn't clicking. They're really ain't clicking over there. How about Tampa? Gensel's off to a cold start. We're seeing a lot of these pieces really starting off, and they need to get going. For us, I think that's one of the positives from not getting a new piece in. This core is intact. The guys are familiar. Panarin, Loff, and Trocheck. I can't speak to it enough of how comfortable they are. They might be the most comfortable lines in hockey right now, and I think this momentum's great. I think we're looking hot off the bat. Let's keep it. I don't anticipate a fall off. Yeah, you might hit a road bump. You might lose one. You might lose two there. But I really like what I'm seeing right now from this team. I don't anticipate a fall off. Hopefully you're in agreement with me, because right now, again, 24 goals in 5 games. I mean, you can't just sit there and say you got lucky.
Yeah, no, I think it's like the only times I could see this team really getting into a funk is like major injuries. Never knowing those are going to happen. That's just life. And then, like, a trap game where if they travel 5 days in a row and they come back to MSG the next night, like maybe they come out flat. And maybe that, turns into a little bit of something. But um, overall, 16, 10, and 13 are the best line in the NHL. I think that's starting to not really become an argument. It's like right now, the first few weeks of this season. So
Agreed,
for
100.
sure, right? Like it, we're gonna debate this at some point too. And I'm sure with other guests we bring onto the live streams, but I really do think they are the best line in hockey. And with that, there's been changes to the fourth line, and they've been actually, I wouldn't even say inconsequential. They've had positive consequences for the Rangers. They play Chad Ruedel, give Jones a break. I've seen a lot of discourse online. I don't mind it because I truly think like playing quick the first night against Detroit, that was a cakewalk of a game. Like I just think, you know, even compared to Boone's management of putting friggin' Weaver and Cousins and Hill on the mound in like major parts of the contest where, the ALCS game 5, like to win the game. Hill and Cousins, those guys, if you mentioned their name months ago, we would have been laughing. This is a guy they picked up from the worst team in history in Hill. But point being, with the Rangers, it's like right now in a regular season, we know these guys what they're capable of. I'm not saying, load management, but okay, so maybe Jones needed the night. Maybe he was banged up a little bit. I see it as a complete positive and great depth in the organization that you can move Carrick, Brodzinski, Rempe, Edstrom, and also move the defense in and out. With Ryan Lindgren injured, like Mancini's been awesome. I think we got to talk about him too. After I want to gauge your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I, of course, you want to give Jones the night off. I'm 100% with it, and if I really can't sit there and fathom the thought process of anybody who's not with it, because again, you have to look at it in this perspective. This is Jones's first season where he's actually getting a start to be an everyday, player, a part of this lineup. So I mean, this is his first season. He hasn't had anything like this at the national, level. So I'm okay with giving him a day here and there. Body gets thrown around. You get bruised up, you get dinged up. That's okay. I want to make sure he's okay. I want to put him in the best possible scenario situation to succeed in this lineup. And I love what I've seen from him so far. And again, we want to give him a night off. That's fine. We want to give somebody on the fourth line off or another defenseman off. Here and there. I'm totally okay with it because again, you mentioned the injuries, and yeah, if us, Trocheck goes down, then yes, we might be in trouble. But you look at a guy like Adam Fox last year. A lot of people were shaking in their boots when Fox went down last year, and it wasn't a problem. We had guys. Gustafson stepped up back then. I think we can have those types of players now and this year. Kind of step up. So I'm not really worried with that. And again, like I said, I think you can't ask for a better start. We're rolling right now. Chaz, Rangers, Yanks. I mean, this is great.
Yeah, I was actually going to add too. Playing Chad Ruhwedel to me isn't a play for. It has multiple advantages, and I think part of it, like behind closed doors and in the vault of those closed doors, is like, all right, we want to make a trade at the trade deadline, and we want to give a little sweetener to a team that needs a seventh defender. Oh, Ruhwedel played in 5 games this year, and here's the tape on him. Like, I think it's going to help down the road too if the Rangers need some stock. Now, a guy that stepped in, Mancini, he's going to make things interesting because I think this isn't discourse for now, but when Lindy's back, it's going to be tough to see 90 go down, man. I mean, he's playing really well.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's been, he's another one that went from, a long shot from training camp, just stepping into this role, and he's looked awesome. He's definitely somebody I want to see more of. And that's why you put guys in certain positions. You want to put Ruido back in the lineup. You don't know who's going to get injured, and that point you just made is so crucial. You want to keep guys fresh. Who knows? Ryan Lindgren comes back, maybe he goes down again. You can't
Yeah.
predict injuries. And you have to have guys prepared to be able to step in. A Ruido. He hasn't had a lot of play time at the end of the season last year, which is why he didn't get an opportunity in the postseason because there was just too much lay time of him not playing. Let's keep him fresh now. You don't know who's going to get injured, and I think if there's one thing that we shouldn't question as Rangers fans is Laviolette. I think 100% the decisions that he's made, I think we shouldn't be questioning him at all. I think he's played his cards right in the regular season last year. I can't sit here and name you one thing in the regular season last year where I was like, Laviolette botched that up. And this year, I think he's been perfect so far. So Laviolette knows how to play the cards that he's dealt with, which I respect. I love it, and I don't question it. So I think it's great.
What do you think about how they use Matt Rempe? Because I know this is like obviously a hot topic, but in a lot of ways, it's felt like the Rempe mania has like I think I anticipated that it would carry into this season a lot more. I think they know that if they deploy him, Laviolette had mentioned in one of the morning skates that he didn't want, players to be in the crease or around the crease to kind of get into those situations. And against Utah, Mancini's first career goal got wiped off the board. He then scored again in Detroit, thankfully. But um, in the home opener, and Rempe's foot was in the skate. Uh, Rempe's skate was in the blue paint. But, I think the conversation is like, if that's how he's going to be officiated, how do the Rangers navigate utilizing him? Because I think he is playing really solid. He took the puck to the net against Toronto. He looked really good. Um, but it's hard to justify when it feels like there's the league's out to get you. So how do you think they're going to use Rempe from here on out?
Yeah, I think this is something that is going to be under the microscope all season long, and it's something that
Yeah.
I think you agreed with me. We both said on the preseason preview that Matt Rempe is not going to be a player that's going to be playing every night, and I think that
Mhm.
is going to be true. I still believe. Yeah, he had a great game the other night, but I still think we need to learn how to use him efficiently. And if he's going to be officiated like that, I think we need to manage him on a matchup base up. We need to see who we're playing and how it plays out. A game against Toronto, I like him in that. I like him in a matchup like that. You know, they got a lot of physical guys. You go in that situation, you know it's going to be more of a defensive game. I like Rempe in that game later on, as to compared to, let's say, we're playing Carolina. You know, Rempe might not be a player I want to carry going into a game like that. So I think we need to learn how to use him more efficiently. Yes, you know, he's like Aaron Judge with the strikes.
Yeah,
Strike with Aaron Judge. That's not a strike for Judge. Some of these, hits on Rempe that get called for penalties, they're not penalties because of his size. But listen, we have to learn how to adjust to that. And I still think that I do think that Rempe is going to get better at that. As again, last year was such a small sample size because he was so young. I think as his career progresses, he's going to get better at that. I think our team is going to get better at that. We're going to know. Listen, we're not going to put him in certain situations that we shouldn't put him in. Whether that's lineup based, whether that's a matchup based. It's the same. It's the same revolving door. So as the season progresses, I think he is going to get better at that, and I think Blavi's going to get better at that too. So I do want to see a little bit more of Rempe. I like what I saw the other night, but I'll pitch it back over to you. What'd you see?
I love it, man. The Rempe strike zone, man. That's what I've been. It's just been that's been in my head for months. Just like it's kind of like I love that you said brought it up. Like Judge, right? It's like in the dirt, and I just think the way judges called is the same way where it's like, listen, Judge is obviously, I think, more comparable to like the Panarin, Zibanejad, level for the Rangers. But I think in the respect of how he's being officiated, like that's perfectly stated. Like, listen, you play the Flyers, you might consider playing him. Um, maybe again, there's likely going to be injuries at some point. But I think another part of it that I want to factor in too is like, I wonder how Jimmy VC fits in when he returns because a lot of the conversation's been about Lindgren, and that's far, I think, more significant considering there's six skaters on defense. Mancini's playing really well, so it's like you don't want to take him out, but you want Fox with his natural guy. Where do you place Truba and Miller because Miller's been playing well with Fox? I get all of the chain of effects, the domino effect, right? But I do wonder what VC coming back, how that affects the Rempe situation too. Because like, all right, so now is Brodzinski gonna not play anymore? Like Carrick seems to be a guy that they never take out. So it seems like he's gonna be the 4C for the foreseeable future. I'm curious to know how VC affects the whole Rempe thing too, because I also think it's gonna be tough to like we mentioned with Ruedel. Do you not play Rempe for like 10 games and then throw him out there? Like, is he gonna be ready to go? Is he gonna be, is the engine lubed up to go?
How I'm gonna ask you this right now. Jimmy VZ comes back. You're
Yeah.
Drury. What do you do? Do you keep Rempe up here and say, okay, listen, he's not gonna play every night, but if he plays, every other night, he's only gonna get 3 or 4 minutes of ice time or whatever? Or are you better off? Do you think we should send him back down to the AHL, and increase his playing time there, hoping that he keeps the leg fresh down there and develops down there. What do you think? What would you do?
I think I'd send him down. Because I think like at his age, it's not like he's 24 and you're like, all right, we've been doing this for 4 years. Send him down, send him, you know what I mean? Like bring him back up. Um, we keep mentioning like with the Mets and Yankees, and I see where some of the young players draw more of a comparison. Like in a lot of ways, like the way Alvarez has that locker room character and is like the funny guy and kind of like the you know heart of the team type of guy. He's young. When he's on, he's on, and I think all eyes are on him. And when he's cold, like in this postseason, Mets fans didn't want him in the lineup. And I do think it's similar in the respect of like if he's getting some time at AAA, if Rempe's getting some time in Hartford, I don't think it hurts at all. And I actually think at this point, if you did this in April, people would be like losing their minds. And I just also think like there's way too much media attention on it. I think that simmered down. So I think now would be a time where if you're going to like it would be beneficial for him. I think there would be a lot of positives for Rempe's development, and I want to see him develop. I want to see him succeed. And I like what Larry Brooks wrote last week about, you have this opportunity to put the two largest Rangers in history on the same line. And I think they both play well enough at the NHL level to stay at the NHL level. But if you want the more experienced Jimmy Vesey, you want the more experienced and versatile Sam Carrick, and frankly Brodzinski, who also has the shot to go along with it, I think Rempe going down to Hartford, potentially Edstrom, I don't think right now it's backbreaking. And I also would mention too, like there are two players that there would be, I think, really big factors in 2025, 2026. I don't want to go all the way there yet, but if big names move, if contracts move, like there's openings for them and they're going to be 23. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think what you said was awesome. I think the way I see it is what Rempe needs right now is he's got to play every night. I think that's how he learns. That's how he develops. That's how he becomes more comfortable with himself. The way that pans out now with our current situation and roster construct, it's just not feasible. I don't. The spot's not there for Rempe to play every night. I mean, you mentioned the boatload of guys we got. I mean, we got Braun, we got Carrick. I mean, there's just VZ when he comes back. Too many guys, not enough spots. And for me, I think it's more valuable to send Rempe down at the moment. Yeah, I do want to see him. I'm not sure we're gonna do it. I'm not sure. I think they have it established that they want him up there. Yeah, he gives you that physicality, and he something about Rempe. He gives you that jolt that you need. Just his presence alone, you feel like it's 1-0 already when he's out on the ice. But again, I'm with you. You're better off, I think, just sending him down and letting him play every single night. I think it's more benefit to him in the long run than if he's just up there playing every other night, getting 2 minutes a game. I mean, it's just too variable and it's just not enough. So I do agree with you on that point. One point I do want to I do want to mention too. Let's go back to let's go back to the Leafs game for a second. That was a kind of lopsided tale. If you look at the final score 4-1, you look at that final score, it was a much closer game than it actually ended up being. I mean, it was 2-1 for all the way up to the third period. And I think you got to turn and you got to look at Igor and say, you know what? This contract situation, it might actually help us out because now he's extra motivated to play well, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, Shesterkin was brilliant all night long, especially in the third period. After the Maple Leafs got that early goal by Matthews to make it a 1-goal game, and the Leafs, they're so interesting. I should have brought this up when we talked with Zach. They attack in waves. It's like if you used to play zombies on COD. It's kind of similar to that. They could go 5 minutes without a shot, and then all of a sudden they get 6 shots in a minute and a half. It's weird. But every time the Leafs had like an A+ opportunity, I mean, Igor was money. Shesterkin was the answer. I mean, you had Nylander over there snapping his stick. You saw the frustration on the Leafs. And I think Shesterkin with his 34, 35 saves, whatever he made, I mean, he was brilliant. I mean, he's only allowed 1 goal in each of his 3 wins. So I think that's a major positive. And then you look at Jonathan Quick, you mentioned earlier in the episode. I mean, you throw him in there against Detroit. He was fantastic. I mean, that was like mid-season form right from last season. I mean, there was no, I mean, Quick's got to be studied. I mean, you look at his last 3 years and he's been on the decline. And last year was just incredible. I mean, the goaltending's been fantastic so far. And again, I'm saying it like we're surprised, Toronto with good goaltending. You'd be like Zach should be surprised with how good the Leafs goaltending has been this year. For the Rangers, we really shouldn't be surprised. But again, I think it's something you should say because it's definitely said when it's not good. So when it is good, we got to give credit to it. I mean, the goaltending has been amazing.
We're just gonna keep doing this for the next 2 weeks, and I'm so excited for it. Like Soto and Shesterkin, dude. Here's the difference, though. Like Soto, Soto's at bat, dude. That was like to me, and I know I'm speaking on emotions too, like that's right up there with the Cubs winning the World Series. Like the home run for the Indians and then the eventual win by the Cubs. And the reason I say that is like it's one of those moments like you cannot believe it happened. The ball's going over the wall. I didn't think it was going I totally blacked out. I don't even know what I was saying. I fell up the stairs because I woke my parents up and it was a whole, thing. Anyway, outside of my whole little story there and tangent, point being, Shesterkin, man, that glove save, he was as locked in as Juan Soto saying you got him, right? But we saw it in the Eastern Conference Final from him. He's not the guy the Rangers need to be saying that. And I know that the contracts and his impact on the game, Soto, Shesterkin, same deal. But I think in a lot of ways, Shesterkin did have those moments, but we didn't win the conference final last year. And I think Soto capping off the victory makes all those things in hindsight look great. And I think the Yankees, frankly, there's a lot of parallels with both teams too in that respect because it's like all those moments the Rangers had kind of pale because it's like, but we didn't clinch, we didn't make it to the dance. Um, right? Like think about all the almost type of classic moments we've seen from the Yankees in the last few years, but they nobody views it as that because they want the championship. And I think in a lot of ways that's for the Rangers too. So now that we connected and concocted comparisons for every single New York team, Steve-O, I feel like that leaves us off just like, all right, we'll see hopefully the Rangers win the cup. Like I feel like that's just how this whole year feels.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these pieces, I think we needed to see some of these pieces improve from last year. And I think to start, one question I think that's been answered for sure has been Mika. I mean, I think this is the last element to top off this episode. How about
I'll
that
take
first? How about that first line? I mean, Kreider's been on a
it.
tear. Kreider's been on a tear, and I think he had the game-winning goal. He threw on another, empty netter. Throwing their Zibanejad. He's got 5 points. I think he's 1 goal and 4 assists in the past 3 games. And Riley Smith, he's got a goal, 3 assists, in 4 games. I mean, that's pretty effing good if you ask me. So in terms of your question or your last point there, these things need to remain constant. I need to see Mika. I need to see Kreider. I need to see these things throughout the whole year.
All right. Now this different guys, different age groups, different impact on the game. Different types of players. Mika Glaber. And hear me out.
Ooh, yes, yeah.
Because like Glaber, there are times where we've looked and we're like, he's just like, where is that? We know it's in, where is it? And this postseason, he hasn't been the guy that we all thought he was gonna be, but we've accepted the player he is now. The player he's been for the last few seasons. And now in that more comfortable area, he's found a way to utilize his strengths. You see him always talking to the other guys at the dugout about what pitches to look at, and he's got an eye. He's got really arguably the best eye on the team. Uh, but his impact isn't the same as we thought it was and what was shown as early as when he was a rookie. Now I know that sounds a little bit like a Cacoian arc, but I do think he's kind of Zibanejad coded, dude. Like I do think that he if the Rangers can succeed with Zibanejad being like a 70-point scorer, they just have to put him in positions to succeed because he may not be the 90-point guy anymore.
I love that. You always were like great with these analogies. I mean, I think that's perfect. I mean, you look at Gleyber Torres last year. I mean, he was our best hitter on the year. I mean, if Aaron Judge wasn't out with that toe injury, that he injured in Dodger Stadium, then yeah, he would probably win in the best. But Gleyber Torres was the best hitter of the team last year. And then look at this year; he had a horrible year. Draw that comparison. Mika, 2022. Mika, great year. Mika next year. Mika, not a great year. So the comparison there is the same. And you move Torres up to the leadoff spot. He's popping. Torres sets up Soto and Judge. Mika on the first line. If Mika performs, then you set up Panarin and Trocheck. And again, it's all cooking and busting. I love that analogy, Chaz. I think it's awesome. So I'll give you the last thought here. Rangers cooking, Yanks World Series next week. What do you got?
It's gonna be a long week, man, and obviously Mets tonight. We'll see what happens because that would push the verge of a Subway Series, which would be crazy. That's like if the Rangers were either. It's like the Rangers either have to play like
The
the
Islanders.
Montreal Canadiens or the Islanders, like two of the best. And you have generational talent on both. Pretty much. I would say Dodgers for sure. I think Lindor, I wouldn't say generational, but superstar. So, but yeah, it's crazy. Like I can't even imagine if the Rangers were playing like I can't even think of a team in the West that epitomizes that as much as like
Rangers Edmonton to me would kind of be like Yankees Dodgers. I feel like at least for me, you got McDavid, Otani,
okay,
two big markets.
like
I feel like
Chesterkin, okay, Panarin.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
All right, Rangers cooking, Yankees in the World Series. Be tuned to Puck Talk CS. We got all the content and news and breakdown and analysis coming up here on the channel. We also just dropped our first Puck Talk CS live video with Zach. You could go back and check that out. It was a preview of the Rangers Leafs, but again, a lot of overarching story points. It wasn't just an individual game preview. So be on the lookout for more Puck Talk CS live. We'll be doing that for more in the future with special guests. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.